Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the live program. And we're just having a bit of a banter backstage there with Paul Hoffman. And anyway, a bit of a chuckle early in the morning, but a serious discussion that is confronting us right now. The problem, the long-term problem that South Africa and the world, I think, is facing is a growing population that is living below the poverty line, 55%, in fact, in our country, apparently. And it has become a global source of concern and it's worrying for our own security in South Africa as people become increasingly poor and hungry. Good morning, Mr. Hoffman, and welcome to the program.
Good morning to you. I must apologize for delaying things, but that's because I'm technologically challenged. I was born before computers and long before these fancy ways of speaking, but I think we've got it all together. So thank you for the invitation.
All right. So you are the director of accountability now. You've penned a piece in the Daily Maverick, I think it is, on the growing concern that we have regarding food security and the poverty lines increasing in South Africa. What are we actually facing as a country?
Well, I think that what we really need to look at quite carefully here is that the people who are generally living in poverty, the rural poor, the people who have lived in informal settlements for many years, have become used to living in poverty, and they've found a way to make a plan to keep body and soul together. But now, with the COVID economic side effects, the lockdown and the loss of employment, either through retrenchment or businesses closing down, or opportunities to those who eke out a living on the fringes of society, those have all really stopped for quite a long time, in such a way that some estimates suggest that there will be 3 million people who lose formal employment in the backwash of the lockdown. And those 3 million people are not people who have lived on the margins. They are people who have been properly employed. And now suddenly they find themselves in a hand-to-mouth existence where there's nothing to put in the hand and nothing to put in the mouth. And that really is what impelled me to write the piece in the Daily Maverick.
In fact, you quoted the UN Secretary General as saying that he's concerned and that our food systems are failing and the COVID-19 pandemic is making things worse. More than 820 million people are hungry, and some 144 million children under the age of 5 are stunted. So how do we look at solutions? Where should we be going? And I know it's a massive task because the entire globe has to move. The entire world has to shift along. But what are some of the practical solutions that are attainable?
Well, one of the you're right. You've got the UN global perspective, right? One of the respects in which South Africa is fortunate is that we are currently a food secure country. Our food production did not slow down at all during the lockdown. We were able to regard the farmers and the canners and the bakers and the food processors as essential workers, and so our food supply has remained unaltered. The other rather scandalous news is that 30% of the food produced in South Africa gets thrown away. It ends up in a landfill. Now, it can't be beyond the wit of the government and of the philanthropists and of those who work in the food chain to see to it that 30% of the food production that currently goes to waste no longer goes to waste. Then, over and above that, our social security system does not cater for able-bodied people who are out of employment, who are aged between 18 when the child grant stops and 60 when the old age pension starts. So the suggestion that I make in the piece is that it is time for South Africa to dust off the idea of a basic income grant, which is what Andy Capp would call the dole. It is there for everybody who asks for it, whether they have money or not. And the tax system works in such a way that if somebody who does have another income and still asks for a grant, then it gets clawed back through the tax system. So you don't have all these fancy means tests. You don't have all of the difficulty in working out who should and who shouldn't get. Everybody in that group is eligible to ask and should be allowed to do it by producing an ID document and a thumbprint and a bank account number. And that would be a simple way for the SASSA system to be expanded to enable the payment of a basic income grant, which would be a great way to get the economy going again, because suddenly people who have nothing have money to spend, and they will spend it and stimulate the economy by doing that, because they're not in the position to save it. They need to keep body and soul together.
Mm-hmm. You also allude to the dangers that face our country if we do not manage to claw ourselves out of this economic spiral downwards that we're going to heading towards. What are some of these dangers that we could be facing?
Yes, there's that famous old saying, I can't remember who said it, that all that stands between mankind and anarchy is 9 square meals. And that is the apprehension which we have in relation to what will happen when people who are used to having an income, who are used to living in a style where they get 3 meals a day, are suddenly in a position where they have to stand in a food line, or they have to apply for assistance which is not forthcoming. And my apprehension is that if I was put in that position, then I would seek to take the law into my own hands in order to address the situation, especially in a country where there are such stark inequalities. And that the net result of it is that people who are hungry will roam the land and riot for food rather than just go away quietly and starve.
Mr. Paul Hoffman, the Director of Accountability Now and writing in the Daily Maverick as an opinionista. Thank you so much for your time and joining us on Salam Media this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity.